This episode was by far one of the most emotional episodes of all of My Hero Academia, in my personal opinion. Because it showcased a couple of major points that really sets the bar high for the upcoming events of the story. And it also lays way for things that even gives more tension to, let's say, new villains that may be introduced one day. And to kind of get right into it, let's talk about one of the main moments I think that got everybody emotional, and that was the Nighteye death scene. So, it's very apparent that there was probably a split between the community when it came to this episode, like, let's say, anime-onlys, or even manga readers, actually, at the time when this first came out. There was a split. You had one side that believed that Nighteye was going to die, and then you had one side that believed that Nighteye was going to be fine, because Eri can, reverse damage. We literally saw her reverse Izuku's damage he took throughout the fight. We saw her do incredible things with literally separating Overhaul from his henchmen. Eri obviously has a very powerful quirk. And when you see what she was capable of, it's very clear that she could have been used to save Nighteye. And so many going into this moment of the story before they saw what happened instantly thought Nighteye is going to be okay because Eri is there. But obviously that did not happen, and this really kind of sets a tone for the upcoming events, but also what to expect. Number one, it's a big win for story writing in general for the series, because we cannot see Eri being used as a crutch at this current time. See, that is the biggest concern many had with the writing at this point of the story when Eri was introduced. When we got first-hand glimpse at what her quirk is capable of, many were worried that because of what her quirk is, to be able to rewind a person, literally their damage, to literally rewind them probably into a younger state, rewind them to where maybe everything that's probably bad that's happened to them comes back, maybe if they're close to death, brought back, etc., or revert them down to their very genetic code to where maybe there's something different that's not even human anymore, or just completely eradicate them and make them not exist anymore. The point is Eri's quirk is incredibly broken. When you look at it on paper and just look at it from the anime and the manga, it's clear that her quirk is so broken, in fact, that it's scary. It's extremely scary because she can be used as a plot device. And this episode kind of proves that at this current time, she cannot be used that way, because there's a couple of reasons why. She is too young, and because of that, she cannot control her quirk. And it's not even just that. She hasn't had the proper time to even get used to her quirk because she's been so mistreated by Overhaul and his entire group that she's never really got to experiment with how her quirk is or how it works. She doesn't even know how it works or what it really is until very recently, thanks to finding out between Overhaul and Izuku's fight. So when you look at all of these things, she couldn't be used to heal Nighteye because her quirk is just too dangerous at this moment, because it was clear from, the way this episode is that her quirk was increasing in power exponentially as time continued to move forward, to the very point to where it started to get a little bit further in AoE, area of effect. Literally, it attacked and hit Overhaul from an extreme distance that was way further than she was in the previous episode. So, as time progressed forward before her quirk stopped, she was getting so far out of control that we don't really know the range of what her quirk was capable of and how far it would spread. So her quirk is incredibly dangerous because she herself doesn't even know how to turn it off or how to use it properly and stop its effects. It's like, what Izuku did at the beginning of the story, using 100% one for all to go up against his opponents and completely shattering his body. That's what's happening here. We're getting to see the very thing that happened to Izuku happen to Eri, and basically see her not knowing how to use it whatsoever. So it's showing a way that Eri cannot be used right now to save people. If someone is in a crisis about to die, they can't go to Eri and just have all their wounds and everything fixed, which is a great thing. It's a really great point for the story. I know it's sad that Nighteye died. Don't get me wrong. I'm very sad he had to die. He's a great character. I love him. But in terms of writing, it's a worthy sacrifice to really keep the integrity of My Hero Academia. So I think many that take a moment to back away from just the emotional death and look at what it meant will really respect what Horikoshi did here for the writing. So getting into that, Night Eye's death, what does it signify? Nighteye is the first major death we have had within My Hero Academia. Now, if we're not counting Magne, which was on the villain's side, the League of Villains, Magne died at the beginning of this arc, and it's quite fitting that a hero dies at the end of this arc. I think it's kind of symbolic in a way. We open the arc with a death, and we end the arc with a death. And they were on both represented sides that had conflict with Overhaul, which is pretty cool, honestly, when you really think about it. But the point, though, is it's not just a villain that died, it was a hero. And not just any hero, it was a very important hero that had a lot of significant weight to the plot, to the connection with certain characters. It wasn't, let's say, a minor character death. Nighteye was an incredibly important character. Even if he was introduced this season, it's very clear that he has been incredibly important because of what his quirk is, to his connection to All Might, to the successor of One for All, Togda, etc. He has been extremely important, even to the rescue operation of Eri. Without him, the rescue operation of Eri would not have happened in the first place. So Nighteye, incredibly important, obviously. So his death is definitely major. And it's sad to see him go, but it kind of gives us a little bit more tension now. Because with Nightaye's death, we now can expect maybe other characters to die in the future. This means that Horikoshi isn't afraid of killing off characters. He isn't afraid to kill off very likable and enjoyable characters in the manga or anime. So it made me appreciate the series a lot more when I saw this scene, because it means that we won't have something where everybody survives at the end of the day and it's like some fairy tale stuff. There will be some repercussions after fights, etc. I mean, it's what I talked about when Izuku took his damage on his arms. When his arms were completely messed up after Muscular, I was very happy. I was glad to see wounds, continue after a fight and last, instead of just magically disappearing after a couple chapters or a couple episodes. So seeing Izuku continuously hold on to his very wounds that he had, and Recovery Girl couldn't save his arms completely, made me incredibly happy. And so seeing Night-Eye's death, it also signifies that no character is really safe, probably besides Izuku, since the narration at the beginning of the story basically is Izuku narrating saying he became the #1 hero. So besides Izuku, every character could potentially be on the chopping block. So it's kind of scary to think about. So it makes for good tension, good story writing, and it really is unknown. We don't really know what to expect going forward. So getting into the emotional part of it, Night-Eye's death obviously holds a lot of weight because he died in a way that's sad, but also he felt happiness in the end. His death, he was able to finally see the light and move past the despair that he's had plaguing him for many years since he was working with All Might. And as, these stories been constantly telling us throughout these episodes of this season, Night-Eye's been plagued by looking into All Might's future and then finding out that All Might dies, and then he blamed himself for looking into the future, that maybe he's the one that dictated that future to happen, where All Might will die, so he blamed himself for All Might's death, basically. I killed All Might, I caused him to lose his power and fall from grace, etc. Night-Eye's been blaming himself continuously, which made it to where his quirk was more like a curse than a blessing, and he no longer really used it anymore to do things. And you could see that in those final moments of his character before he died, he looked into Togda's future and he saw blank. It was a quick scene that was in this episode. It was very blank. It was just completely like nothingness, which basically meant that the future was uncertain. He didn't really know what was going to happen. Maybe because he was about to die and he couldn't see into the future anymore, or it's because that maybe the future really is uncertain because of so many things that's happened and because of Eri. There's a lot of questions, but the point though is that Night-Eye died in peace. He died in a way to where he finally was able to live with himself and think that maybe the one he truly looked up to as a hero, All Might, would survive and not die. So it's sad, but I'm glad to see that he died in a way that wasn't in utter despair. He died with a smile. So yeah, it was a great scene. It was definitely an emotional scene. It got me emotional just watching it, and I'm a manga reader. I have, read this in the manga already, so it's a great episode for that. And especially when Togeto ran in, and you see Nighteye kind of explain that at first, when he got Togeto a part of his agency, he was using Togeto as, like, the next vessel for One For All, and then he realized very quickly that he started growing a bond and connected and tried to raise Togeto to be very strong. It was a very beautiful moment, kind of showing that Nighteye went from someone that was just clearly focused on preserving All Might's, future and his legacy, to someone that became a mentor and wanted to look after the next generation. It's beautiful. So, just a great scene overall. Honestly, it's a great way to kind of conclude this arc. So, let's back up and talk about the other stuff. So, Overhaul, he got a very unfortunate conclusion. I mean, I know many are probably going to be jumping for joy, because after everything he's done to Eri, what monster he's become, I know many are probably very happy to see what's happened to him. It's definitely something that probably many are like, yeah, he deserved that. But we gotta look at this from a different perspective, though, okay? Besides if he deserved it or not, the point, though, is that what Shigaraki did to him, Shigaraki took everything from him. Took everything that Overhaul held dear from him. He didn't just take Eri, or Eri's Quark erasing bullets. He took his Quark away, his arms, his very foundation for his operation of, being an underground organization. He took everything. He no longer literally has anything left. And the worst fate is that Overhaul was left to just be there alive, to rot in prison, and just watch what Shigaraki does with the future. It's kind of messed up, honestly. But it kind of shows the growth of Shigaraki as a villain, too, when we think about where this arc started. So let's get into that. When you look at the beginning of this arc, there was a huge conflict with, Overhaul and Shigaraki's group. Magne died thanks to the whole ordeal, and that was a big blow. And Shigaraki proved that he does care about his group, and the group does care about each other. They're more like a family than just, let's say, vicious villains wanting to gut each other. And when you look at Overhaul's group, it's very clear that there might have been some friendly, people with each other, like friendship power-ups and stuff with the villain organization of Overhaul, but Overhaul was not a good person. He was someone that didn't care about the whole organization. He would slit their throats and not even give a crap whatsoever. So it showed the difference between both organizations, and I think it's really interesting to see when Overhaul first confronted Shigaraki. He's like, okay, before I even offer my help, etc. with you, you need to tell me, what is your plan? What do you have planned? What's going to happen? And Shigaraki answered him at the beginning, I don't know. I don't have really a plan. He didn't really answer. And so, technically, Shigaraki was going forward with his operation without even thinking ahead or knowing what to do. And that is where Overhaul was better at being a villain than Shigaraki. But thanks to Magne's death, he had a plan to overthrow Overhaul. And that is indeed what happened within this episode. So, you can kind of say this. Since the very beginning, Shigaraki has been gaining more and more traction as a villain. At the beginning, when he first was introduced, he was a little kid. He was a kid that just felt like everything was a game. And then he got a motive. He got a motive from, figuring out what he needs to do. For instance, take down All Might. Then he got, overall symbol to rally behind. Got a group behind him, which was taking Stain's ideal. Then he also took over Overhaul, and he got a plan. When you really look at everything that's happened, Shigaraki has progressed quite a bit as a villain, and he is nowhere near the same person he was at the beginning of the story, which makes him incredibly scary when you really just stop to think about it. So, I think that what happened to Overhaul was cruel, but it's kind of interesting to see that Shigaraki, instead of just instantly ending the man, he decided to let him be and be alive, even though he lost both his arms, for he could suffer for the rest of his days and watch what, Shigaraki does with the very things that he put down for him. Because when you really think about it, Overhaul wanted to use the League of Villains, but now the League of Villains are using Overhaul's group as a stepping stone to continue what they want to do. So it's cool. I like that conclusion. How did you all feel about that? I'm very curious. How did anime-onlys feel about that moment with Shigaraki and Overhaul? Let me know in the comments below. I'm very curious. But, anything else left to tackle? I guess the last thing to really talk about is just Aizawa and his connection with Eri. So it's very clear that Aizawa is probably going to be incredibly important for Eri, because he was the only one that was able to stop Eri within this episode. And from what we found out from Overhaul, is that the only way Eri was able to stop her quirk is by him literally resetting her. So that means that Aizawa is probably going to be incredibly important, because he's probably going to have to use his quirk to be able to stop her if she loses control, whatever's going on. So yeah, I do think that this episode goes to show Aizawa is going to be incredibly important going forward. But I think I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, how you felt about this week's, episode of My Hero Academia. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.